to WebEx 2025 Bid Vending Stage for the next session, titled AI meets Web3, Building Tomorrow's Decentralized Intelligence. Our guest panelists are Laurence Moroney from ARM, Takafumi Yano from RUTILEA, and Michael from Delgy Loves. Please come up to the stage.
All right, nice to be here. I'm Michael, co-founder and CEO of Zero-G Labs, and it's my absolute pleasure to be sharing the stage with Laurence and Yano. So today we'll talk about AI meets Web3 and really building tomorrow's decentralized intelligence. And we want to bring together a few of the thought leaders in the space to really talk about how decentralized technologies will shape AI in the future. And we'll have some big questions the panelists will answer, but I think we'll cover anything from decentralization as a counterbalance to centralized AI, new economic models in the space, infrastructure challenges, alignment and ethics challenges, and then bigger kind of economic opportunities as well. And maybe we'll start with introductions. I'll just introduce myself first. So it's also actually my first time being a moderator. Usually I'm on the panel myself, so that's quite fun for me. But I kind of started my career at Microsoft and SAP Labs on the technology side, and then moved to Bain and Bridgewater Associates afterwards. Then I moved back to graduate school at Stanford and started my first unicorn company that was Y Combinator backed. Eventually sold the company and then started Zero-G Labs. And Zero-G is the largest and fastest AI layer 1. So decentralization of AI is very core to what we do. But let me hand it over to Yano to introduce himself next.
Okay. So I started my RUTILEA company when 2018. So after I exited my first company. So when I was first year of doctoral student, I mastered electrical engineering, and I realized a PhD course is so tired things. That's why. So I quit it. And this is my first starting point of my career of entrepreneur. And in this RUTILEA company, so we provide AI-specific solution to the public sector and enterprise company. And in recent years, so we started to investment in GPU cloud and energy sector. And today, so I want to talk about how decentralized AI change the AI industry. Okay, next, Laurence.
Hello, everybody. Hajime mashite. I'm Laurence, and I've been working in the AI industry since 1992. So that's 33 years. So I've seen it kind of go through a lot of boom and busts, mostly bust, until recent years. I spent about 11 years at Google, where I was leading AI advocacy there, launching things such as TensorFlow. I'm presently the director of AI at ARM, where I'm looking at how we can start thinking about distributed AI and small language models and being able to think about how AI and Web3 will intersect. And so I'm just really happy to be here, and I'm excited to get on with the conversation.
I'm excited as well. Great luminaries on the stage. So why don't we dive into the first question right away? So Sir Stuart Russell, who is a safety expert and runs the Safety Institute effectively at UC Berkeley, says that we should stop training bigger and bigger closed source models because of AI safety concerns. They're trained on human data. Human beings can act in nefarious ways, so therefore bigger AI models would act in those ways. Curious, what's your take? Maybe we start with Laurence.
Sure. So I have a different opinion. I think that if there is a reason for us to stop training larger models, it's more we're hitting the law of diminishing returns with those models. And again, I've said I've been in AI through boom and bust cycles, and there's a lot of talk about the AI bubble bursting right now, and continuing to drive larger models is going to be part of a bubble bursting if it does. When it comes to safety, I think the issues of safety are not directly related with large models. I think safety can be an issue with any technology, not just large AI. It could be an issue with small AI, and it could be an issue with like non-AI things as well. So I kind of disagree with it from the point of view of that we should stop training large models for safety reasons alone. The way I see the AI industry really happening and the way it's evolving is really there's a fork in the road right now, where those who are looking to build the best and most intelligent and drive towards AGI and ASI are using scaling as their methodology for doing that. I'm not convinced scaling will get us there on one side of the fork. The other side of the fork that I'm much more interested in is really bringing more and more intelligence to smaller models and then having fine-tuned smaller models that are designed for specific tasks at hand. And then that lends naturally towards a decentralized network.
That's very much our perspective at Zero G as well, actually.
We didn't prepare this beforehand.
we have not, but this is fun to see. So, Yano, what's your take?
So I think I have opinions about the question. So I think so recently, as Laurence says, so SL model getting more smarter and smarter. Not even they don't use so high computation resource. So in environmental environmental aspects, I think we should stop training AI model of the bigger one. But in the science side, so I think AGI is the ultimate goal of human beings. So I think to take a balance is important. So recently, many number of economists said people. AI industry, so they will take all of electrical resource. So I think this is one of the huge problem. But so in the science side, so to get AGI is good things. So I'm struggling, which is better.
Very interesting. And so, Laurence, you brought up that kind of getting to this fine-tuned, smaller models actually leads to decentralization. So let's dive into that a little bit. Do you think decentralization and AI are compatible? Do we need decentralization in AI?
I think they're absolutely compatible because I think the vision that I have for AI and the way that I see it going is if you think about a large centralized model at the moment like Gemini or GPT or Cohere's models, Claude, I can never remember its name. What they do is that they're one massive model with hundreds of millions heading towards trillions of parameters where the one model can do anything. It can do code, it can write haikus, it can understand legal, it can understand medical. And a better solution would be that for smaller models that are tasked to be specific experts in a thing, in a particular granular way, wouldn't it be better to have one model that maybe 20 billion parameters or less that is a deep, deep, deep expert in a particular thing, like maybe coding Solidity to build on-chain applications or coding Python and PyTorch for building AI stuff, instead of a generalized model that's supposed to be able to do everything. So if you can envisage that the world being populated with many of these small experts that are finely tuned towards a specific task, now the innovation out there will be in how you network these experts together. And that decentralization leads to a natural intersection with Web3.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that. So I studied some cognitive neuroscience when I was an undergrad, and that's actually how the brain works in and of itself, which is quite funny and maybe not surprising. But for example, you have a motor cortex, and the motor cortex is very specialized. Like you have a representation of your hand, you have a representation of your foot in the motor cortex. You have an occipital lobe, which does like data processing of images. And then all of that's tied together by this like outer layer on the prefrontal cortex or on the cortex called the layers of Rex that are coordination mechanisms between all of those. So I just, as you were saying, it's like uncanny that there's this resemblance to what was already invented in nature. Curious, Yano, if you have a take on decentralization too.
I think your mimic of the to compare the cortex, especially in the motor cortex, is a really good idea. So if you look to take a bicycle, I think a small piece of motor cortex is getting activated, I think. So Laurence says, so decentralized AI is a natural way because even get a big LLM model, I think the activated layer is, I think, so small. So I think that most of the layer is meaningless. I think this is what, so maybe Laurence want to say.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I mean, even if you think of like the early days of neural networks, like you could build a basic perceptron to recognize a thing with like a couple of hundred neurons. Now think about, instead of a couple of hundred neurons, like, and when you think about a neuron, all it is it's got two parameters, a weight and a bias, to be able to learn a linear relationship. You put a couple of hundred of them together, you got basic computer vision model. What now if you start thinking of decentralized experts of models and you network those together instead of networking individual small neurons, and you build the trust network around them using Web3? That to me is like one of the futures where I see, you know, potentially AGI and ASI will emerge out of that primordial soup instead of trying to build, you know, the latest, greatest God model in 1 trillion or 2 trillion parameters.
Yeah, and there's this kind of interesting host of possibilities that we see as well, which is, imagine now, instead of needing to rely on one company to kind of train all these models, you have a community that comes together. Let's say I find all of my best coding buddies that are like expert coders, and we say, okay, why don't we create an expert coding model for Solidity, for example, and we go on to a launchpad and effectively say, let's tokenize this particular model, get a bunch of tokens distributed based on the compute that we provide, based on the data that we provide, and then let's kind of pre-train this model, maybe as a federated learning model or some other way, and then let's see what emerges. And then probably in most cases, these models will then outperform the state-of-the-art models as well. And so I think the open source movement can contribute a lot to AGI and ASI over the time. So really enjoy that kind of view of the future. Any reactions to kind of the community-driven approaches to decentralization as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the example that you said is exactly right and how I've been thinking about it. But then now take that a step further, that you do that with a bunch of your buddies, but 100 other groups around the world do the same thing. And all of these models are, you know, on-chain with Web3. They're open, they're trusted. You can see how they're being used. If the inputs and outputs are put on chain, then they're immutable. And then the person who wants to consume these will be able to see which of these models are the best and which of these models are the most used. Whereas today, you know, we go and we take a look at Gemini or GPT or whatever, and we have a benchmark, right? And we were joking backstage that, like, if you think about a benchmark, it's if you only measure quality based on benchmarks, then you're optimizing for the wrong thing, that people will build a model, you know, that passes a benchmark. You know, if the way of measuring the best CEO was the fastest runner, you'd be spending all of your time learning how to sprint instead of learning how to build your business. And that's effectively what's happening in the AI world when we're benchmark driven. But this community-oriented approach, powered by something like Web3, is just the game changer for the entire industry and potentially for the entire species.
And the other thing this brings up too is there's kind of this idea of transparency baked into Web3. So I wonder if, Yano, you have a comment on that and kind of the role of that in decentralization of AI.
Yeah. So I have many comments of the transparency. So after before coming here, so I chat with Laurence, and so I think most of the open source AI company and closed model company says our model is the best in this benchmark. But the process of the taking benchmark is so untransparent, so decentralization, and especially like the transaction of the BTC, this is fully transparent. And so likewise, so the process of fine-tuned and process of making LLM model, must be transparent. This is my opinion.
And maybe to dive into this a little bit more, transparency generally also requires some type of verification if it's decentralized, because in order to trust somebody or trust the system, I need to be able to verify myself, because it's a trustless system. I don't know who my counterparty is, and I don't need to know if it's on the blockchain because there's some trust mechanisms. Do you see, verification being an important part of this?
Yeah, I think it is needed. So I am a bit of a beginner of this Web3 industry, but so I have heard about the validator in idea of so maybe so your open, knowledge is needed, but so validator is, in my understanding, this is the idea to check this blockchain is operated properly. So this is checked by the one of the dominated nodes. So this is served for to get a smooth transaction. So I think so even the decentralized AI industry. So I think this validator to check. So this LM model is make like so this is safe and it has capability or like good capabilities in coding Pythons, and this type of validator is needed. This is my understanding.
Yeah, we would agree, and especially in decentralization, the key question is always, what do you trust? In centralized AI, you trust the company, OpenAI, to align this model with human needs. In decentralized systems, you trust your verification, basically. So verification is absolutely essential. How do I know what model was called? How do I know where the data came from? How do I know who labeled it? How do I know what the weights and biases were? How do I know, which GPU was used to even give me this inference response? All of those require verification type of analysis, and that's, I think, what decentralization can bring to the AI space as well. But let's go a little bit further, and I'm kind of curious to get both of you guys' takes on what's one thing you got right about the AI space, and what's one thing you got wrong. So curious.
Only one. I've gotten many things wrong. But I think I'll answer that first, but then I want to go back to the trust and verification thing. But the thing that I think that I got wrong initially in the AI space was just how popular ChatGPT was going to be. So I had worked on transformers and on transformer-based architecture and solutions long before ChatGPT was released. And I saw how useful and how powerful a transformer-oriented chatbot could be. But also very rapidly hit the walls of it failed the Turing test with me, where it's like, hey, it was really cool, and I could use a system prompt to get it to pretend to be a thing and play with it for a little while, and then it would work, and then I get bored and move on to the next thing. So when OpenAI first released ChatGPT, I was like, this is very interesting, but it's never going to last. For that reason, as well as the reason of it's incredibly expensive to operate. So a lot of people were using, and I'm sure everybody in the room is using GPT or Gemini or Claude or any of these to ask and to search for the most basic details. I rode an Uber over here. I'm not staying in this hotel, and my Uber driver, when she found out that I work in AI, she told me about ChatGPT, and she uses ChatGPT for relationship advice, which I thought was really amazing. And so this was what I got wrong. And I honestly thought that this was overhyped, and it was, it would never be used the way that it is, and it could not survive being used as a replacement for search because it's just so expensive to operate. Now, it might turn out in the long run that I'm right, because as we've seen, GPT-5 is a lot less powerful than GPT-4 because they want to reduce the amount of tokens that it uses because, unfortunately, they're burning through money, running GPT, particularly as a free service. So I'd say that's the big thing that I got wrong. The big thing that I got right was knowing that AI would be huge, but I still am a very firm believer in small AI. So not just language models, but also the ability to grow your own neural network, to do computer vision solutions, to do natural language processing solutions, and not everything has to be transformer-based.
That's great. And maybe your comment on verification you wanted to mention.
Oh, yeah, sure. So I think, on the point of verification, that one of the things that's a huge benefit and a huge hidden benefit of decentralized is when we think about centralized AI, like you mentioned, Google or whatever. I mean, I've worked on Gemini, and one of the things is that when you have a centralized model, you also have to realize that while you can trust the company that's operating it, you also have to realize that that company has its own rules under which it operates. So for example, with something like Gemini, every query into Gemini was being intercepted and refactored to be able to meet some of Google's responsible AI principles. So if I give an example of that one is that, if you do an image search for an image of a doctor, it's more likely to be a man. If you do an image search for nurse, it's more likely to be a woman. But when you would talk to a model and say, give me a picture of a doctor, their branding and their lawyers said you should not output a picture of a man. So it would intercept your query and say, you know, instead of give me a picture of a doctor, it would say, give me a range of diverse pictures of doctors of varying genders and races, and then output a bunch. And we probably saw what happened when people realized this and were able to, you know, hack it to do really naughty things. So that level of trust you have to realize in a centralized one is that they have to serve their own needs and their own purposes too. Whereas in a decentralized thing, if you are the person creating a model for a specific task, you will also, you know, you're not trying to protect your brand across multitude of other things, where Google obviously don't just do Gemini, they do search and they do YouTube and they do Android and all of these other things. And that brand protection was necessary, and then that changed how the AI would behave. So I think it's a kind of a subtle but a very hidden massive advantage of decentralization and having like an open community be able to grow up this like soup of models that I spoke about.
Yeah, it's all fascinating what you mentioned about the prompt. The prompt that I entered isn't even my prompt anymore because it gets that filter. Yeah,
exactly.
Very fascinating. Okay, Yano, to you. One thing you got right, one thing you got wrong.
So I have two opinions. And so one opinion is, so recently I tried to use GPT-5, but I realized GPT-5 is stupid. because
backward evolution.
GPT-5 is tend to stop making endeavor, so they're easy to stop. But so I use when I use GPT-5, so I write many times to never give up easily.
That's the advice I give my children, so never give up.
But this is so natural thing because the GPT-4 is too costly. But of course I understand. So I think the decentralized AI has taken advantage. So in two terms. One term is so many people can involve in checking the qualities of the output of AI. So in our company, so we utilize GPT-5 and Gemini and a Chinese Kimi model, moonshot model. And most of the benchmark says GPT-5 and Gemini they are much clever than Kimi model. But in your company, some of the engineers say Kimi is more clever to GPT-5. I think, so this is one of the answers. So decentralized way can be helpful to check the quality of AI model in many angles, from many angles. So some people like Gemini, some people like GPT-5, some people like an open source model. Likewise, people has a favor, so which type of AI and which type of response is preferable to them. So decentralized way of, especially in evaluation, is a key of aspect to make more good model to the people. And the second one is, so as Laurence says, so centralized AI model is they are always the side of the vendors of this model. So if we hit like the doctor, a medical doctor, and so maybe so this recommendation of medical doctor is manipulated by the central company. But using decentralized AI, so this is purely reflection of the human favor. So these two aspects may be a good solution to get a more AI model. This is my two opinion.
Thank you. Fascinating points. Let's get maybe a couple quick spicy takes. So, do we need new economic models in the future where AI runs most of society?
I think we need them anyway. Never mind the AI part, but I think one of the things that, if I just peel it into the AI side of it, that AI economics, and particularly with large language models and transformer-oriented stuff, the economics are entirely token-based. Not to confuse with blockchain tokens. I mean, like tokens within a model. And as a result, when we take a look at the costs involved, is that companies spend money training models and make money on inference with models. And the inference in models is basically you're asking it to do something, you're sending some tokens in, it's doing a thing, right? It's processing your prompt and then it's sending some tokens out. When there's reasoning involved, it's then reprocessing those tokens again, and then maybe again, and then maybe again. So, the entire economics around using the model effectively become token-based, plus the overhead of the GPU time or the processor time when it's, running those tokens over and back. So I think, when we start then thinking about how we pay for using these things, the current model is a little bit naive, where it's $20 a month or $200 a month or something like that, and it's not going to last. Because, when we take a look at, if you do something very basic and even a very basic agentic workflow, you're burning through your tokens in no time. And we're beginning to see the companies removing the whole unlimited tokens and putting caps on it, and those caps are only going to come down. So as society then becomes more and more ingrained in using these models, the whole idea of dollars to buy a particular number of tokens to do a thing, or yen to buy a particular number of tokens to do a thing, is going to become more important. And in some ways, the tokens themselves may be the new currency.
That sounds almost like transaction gas fees on a blockchain.
Exactly.
Yano, your take.
I think we need end-to-end supply chain as economics is needed. So in your company, we provide GPU resource to decentralized GPU cloud service, likewise Acer company. And so using the type of decentralized GPU market, so we can share we can share the GPU resource in quick way. So this is one of the good solutions of decentralized deeping structure. And so I think, as Laurence says, so now the AI companies, so they're trying to get the money from us, a subscription, like $20, $30 monthly. But so I think, we need another method of a charging point. So we should pay for the outcome. So we should not pay for subscription size. So I think most of the AI company now is negative profit, I think, because subscription is not so smart. Okay,
that's a really nice way of saying
it. Quick opinion.
I like the word negative profit.
I want that on a T-shirt.
Negative profit equals AI.
Yeah, negative profit. That's why we are good guys.
That's funny. All right, let's get to one of my favorite questions, which is big AI models today are controlled by a handful of corporations. What happens when decentralized AI threatens their dominance? So, fun takes. Laurence?
I think they already realize that, right, when you think about it. So Google have released Gemma as an open source model. OpenAI have recently released open source models. Anthropic haven't done it yet. And I think that they realize that there is the future growth opportunity in small models that can be fine-tuned and used in a distributed way. I don't think a lot of thinking about having that on-chain primordial soup that I spoke about earlier is being done, but the ability for somebody to use a Gemma model and fine-tune it and run it in a small data center or run it on their desktop is something that's very much front of mind for the likes of Google. And OpenAI, like I said, they've just released two, I hate calling them open source. They're not really open source, but they've released two models that you can actually access the weights yourself and run them locally. They're not particularly open. So I think the large companies are already recognizing that there is that future for smaller models that people can use on their own desktop or in their own data center instead of relying on the hosted God models hosted by Google or Anthropic or whomever. So I do see that the realization is there, and I think the key word of 2025 was agents. I think the key word of 2026 is going to be local AI. Even NVIDIA recently released a paper where they make the claim that I've been saying it for a long time, but they're making the claim that small language models are the key to agentic workflows. And it just makes all the sense in the world. When we go back to the previous question about economics, the expense of running a model is tokens flowing through a model. And an agentic workflow is many, many, many steps of tokens flowing through a model. Even when the model is reflecting on what it has done and generating another query and flowing them through. And the cost of being able to do that on giant hosted models is becoming prohibitive. But the cost of being able to do that on smaller models that you run locally is a lot less. You know, the gas charges are a lot smaller. So I think, you know, I don't think it's necessarily a threat to the large companies. I think there's always going to be a need for these giant models to be able to do the type of complicated reasoning and cross-discipline reasoning that they do. But I think the main growth area and the main greenfield is in the, you know, the distributed mixture of experts of smaller models rather than the integrated mixture of experts in a larger model.
Yeah, I would also agree that I think it's somewhat use case dependent. If it's an individual use case like order a pizza, book this restaurant, then the risk factor is very low of the model kind of messing that up. But if it gets to kind of large-scale societal type of implications where the models are running airports, logistics systems, manufacturing systems, the room for error is very small. And that's where I think decentralization will especially shine. And so depending on the use case, we'll have different ways of interacting with AI, whether it's on device or kind of on a centralized AI stack or on a decentralized AI stack. So very much kind of agree with that. Yano, your take.
So I think, so as your question, so what will happen, so when decentralized AI threatens the dominance, this is a timing. I think this is a timing of, so decentralized AI model, they replace the role of some of the router of SLM model. And so this router of SLM model, if this router replaces the centralized AI model, this is a timing. So the centralized AI model is, of course, this is smart enough. So if we combine all of the knowledge in the world, all of the decentralized computing solutions in as a network, so which is the final winner? So I think it's that this is the final winner because so no one can win. So even the smartest guy in the world, so they cannot win. It's the rest of the people. So that's why. So this is must happen. So this is my opinion, and I think so. After the decentralized AI penetrates the centralized AI model, so I think the most of web industry is collapsed because so now the most of the SaaS company, they are threatened by AI data company. So even in Japan, so there are many number of small SaaS company, but these companies' value proposition is threatened by AI native company, and the same things must be happen for the global big company. This is one my opinion.
Great. Let's continue maybe to Yano. What's your take on opportunities for Japan and Asia to lead in decentralized AI as well?
Yeah. So I think everyone knows Japan is not a big AI contributor in the world. So if you look at the number of GPU servers, and the top one is US, and second one is China, and third one is maybe Europe, and the 4 or 5 is in Japan. I think so. This is a weird thing because Japan has even we have a third big GDP industry in the world, but so if you look at the eyes of the computer resource, the Japan is ranked 4 and 5. So I think so that's why so Japan is in difficult situation, but so we can take a good role if we enroll in the Web3 industry, because Web3 is not a target or dominated by the one company. So we can take a contribution. So like open source software industry. So this is one of my idea.
and really play into the strengths. And one thing that occurred to me as well is kind of the IP rights are quite different in Japan, because we saw a lot of the Studio Ghibli animations and images come out, and so there's a general kind of openness to like an open source idea and community already in Japan, and so leaning into that seems like a smart idea as well. Laurence, for you, let's think a little bit about traditional enterprises. How can they leverage Web3 to improve their AI implementations?
Oh boy, so I think a traditional enterprise, there's two ways that I'm thinking of, right? Number one is to expose any intelligence that they have to their customers, and number two is to consume external intelligence for themselves. So I'm going to start with the second one of these, because I think, you know, a lot of enterprise companies have a lot of trouble and a lot of difficulty and an expense in consuming unstructured data. So if I give like financial services as an example, you know, financial services, at least in the US, companies produce like 10Qs and 10Ks as these big fat PDF documents written in plain English, but they are unstructured data. And then often to be able to extract some wisdom from that, you need human eyes on it to be able to read it, or you're hiring external places that have human eyes reading it and then finding out the structured data that you want. And that's a very error-prone process. I think there's definitely room in this space for people to be able to create an AI model, or what I call an AU model, in this case an artificial understanding model, where large language models are very good at parsing text and being able to consume that text and to be able to answer questions about it, but they're prone to hallucination. So when it comes to blockchain type solutions, the ability for somebody to be able to create an agentic workflow or a swarm of agentic workflows to be able to consume this unstructured data, to pull out the valuable stuff from that one and publish it for an enterprise to consume is great. But then if they publish it on chain for the enterprise to consume is even better, because once it's there, it's immutable, it's trusted, it's stamped, it's verified. And, you know, companies that provide that service to turn unstructured data into structured data and then allow enterprises to consume that structured data will save enterprises a lot of time and effort and money. So I think, you know, that's one of the places. I've been doing a lot of work with a company called Chainlink. If you're familiar with them, I worked on a project with them called Project Calm. And the whole idea was to do something like that, to build a swarm of AI agents to be able to turn unstructured data into structured ones, turn those into golden records, and effectively use a blockchain as a cache of golden verified data that now financial services can consume.
And I like your term, large understanding model.
Yeah, artificial understanding.
Or artificial understanding model, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a research report by Apple that was saying that even the reasoning models don't really understand what they're doing, because it's still just token kind of probabilistic events.
Yep, that's why it's artificial understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's maybe turn to a fun question. What do you think is the most underrated AI tool at the moment?
Oh boy. I'm going to say I surprised myself with this tool when I started using it, but it was the Gemini CLI. I worked at Google for a long time. I used Gemini for a long time. After I left Google, I wanted to not use Gemini, to start using something else. But then when I started using the Gemini CLI, particularly for two things, number one, for writing code, and number two, for writing creative works, it's been absolutely fantastic. So it's a free open source tool that I say, you know, I find that massively underrated. I think it's fantastic.
I have to try it out now. Yano?
So most underrated, right?
Most underrated, yes.
Yeah, yeah, sir. I understand. Most, yeah, it's a difficult question. Maybe most one. Google Drive.
Google's getting a lot of love here.
Yeah.
So I think so you said Gemini CLI. Yeah. So Gemini CLI is a popular tool for the engineers, so Google Drive recently they incorporate Gemini to use Google Drive as a data lake. but so the most of the business persons and engineers, so they don't find out how to use Google Drive as Gemini desktops. That's why this is one of my answers.
Oh, nice. Love that. A lot of love for Google. Maybe just a final question, since we're wrapping up here. Maybe in a few words, what will people be talking about a year from now in AI?
Local AI.
Local AI.
Local AI.
Local AI.
Yeah.
Okay, decentralized AI.
Local decentralized AI.
Local decentralized
Local and
AI.
decentralized.
Or decentralized
Yeah.
local AI. Yeah.
Wow. I
Hybrid
love
manner.
this. Yeah. High conviction on this panel. Well, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having us. And yeah, please follow us on socials. Maybe real quick, where can people find you?
I'm everywhere on socials, but probably mostly on LinkedIn or Twitter, or X as it's now called.
Oh, you can reach my LinkedIn, but I'm not a user of X.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on X myself. It's just Michael_H_0G. All right. Thanks, everyone. Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Arigato gozaimasu.
Thank you everyone on stage for your wonderful discussion. So let's have a commemorative photo all together on stage. Thank you for your cooperation. Please give them a big round of applause. Thank you very much. A wonderful, wonderful discussion. Thank you.